Back about 8 months ago or so, when I did a cold start of this 95 Crown Victoria upon request from another YouTube subscriber during the last year where we had that really terrible winter, one of the things that you may have noticed in the video was a god-awful screeching sound coming from the belt drive system, and that's because one or both of these pulleys, the grease is drying up in there, and on that cold day, I think it was around 23 degrees, these pulleys weren't getting any lubrication, and they started to squeal, and after about 5 minutes, the squealing started to subside, and you can drive the car. Kind of goes to show you that even though this engine has, at the time, it had about maybe 14,000 miles on it. I think now it's got around 20,000 miles. I've been driving it quite a bit between it and the Buick Roadmaster. Even though it's a low mileage engine, time is your enemy, and even just sitting there just over time, the grease in these pulleys has dried out. And the belt, even though it's 20 years old, it's got a little bit of cracking and everything, but nothing really out of the ordinary. The belt is still quite usable, quite supple, nothing wrong with it. It's got some cracks there. I'm going to go ahead and replace the belt as well too. And I'm going to go all in with the best components I can possibly find. I'm going to go in with a Gates green stripe heavy duty serpentine belt. These tend to be really good belts, nice and quiet. The ribs in here tend to have a little bit of fuzz on them, so that kind of makes them nice and soft around the pulleys. And I'm going to go ahead and replace the idler pulley and the tensioner pulley with Gates components. And as you can see here, the part numbers are the same. And to illustrate, I still have this seized engine that was originally with that car, and here's what we're going to be doing. Now these pulleys are in much worse shape. Here's what happens when they finally decide to fail completely. There's just no lubrication in here at all, although the axial play is within limits. Feels pretty good, but it's basically done for. What we're going to be doing is basically just loosening this, taking off the drive belt, loosening this bolt here and replacing the idler pulley, and then we're going to remove these 3 bolts, remove the tensioner, belt tensioner, and there's a bolt on the back side of this pulley, and we'll replace this pulley as well too. A lot of people think that you have to replace the entire tensioner, and on a high mileage vehicle that's not particularly a bad idea, but there's nothing wrong with the tensioner on that car. All it is just here's the end of it, just a big clock spring in here. But over time, these tensioners go up and down, they vibrate as the engine's running, and enough cycles of that. The bushings in here tend to wear out as well as the springs. So after about maybe 100,000 miles or so, you want to replace the tensioner. But that Crown Victoria is really kind of a unique case where the bearings inside these things failed just because of time, not because of use. So, first thing we got to do is get that serpentine belt out of the way. To do this job, it's fairly straightforward. You're going to need a breaker bar. I like to use a breaker bar. You could use a regular socket wrench. It's just going to take a little bit of effort. And you're going to need a 13 millimeter and a 10 millimeter socket. And you also want to make sure before you start that you locate or even have the belt routing diagram, because on some cars it could be quite confusing, particularly the water pump area. You want to make sure that water pump turns in the right direction once you're all done with everything. Otherwise it'll ruin your day. So what we're going to do, and I'll show you on this other engine here, we're going to take that breaker bar and go right in here, apply force downward, release the tension, and get that belt out of there. Hopefully I'm not going to have to take the fan out in doing all of this. You don't need to keep tension on it the entire time. Once you take the belt off of one pulley, usually the alternator, because it's easy to get to, you can work this thing on out of here. I'm working it away from the air conditioning pulley now. Out she comes. That's going to be good to keep as a spare. And now that we have that out of the way, I don't know which actual pulley failed on this thing last time when I started in the wintertime. I'm turning them around now to feel for it. I think I've identified it now that I don't have the noise of the engine to muffle the problem. I'll spin these by hand and let you guys listen. That seems okay, so we'll go down to the idler, the tensioner pulley down here. Sounds a lot different. So this idler pulley is actually the one that was causing the noise. That's good to know. But I'm going to go ahead and replace both of them at the same time. Just best practice, because the idler pulley bearing can't be that far behind. We'll go ahead and switch over to our 13mm socket, and we'll hit the idler pulley first. Since this is a low mileage engine, these bolts are coming out of here pretty easily, especially with a breaker bar. There's what it looks like. And there's the bearing. It's just a basic pulley with what looks like a front alternator bearing pressed in there, and permanently lubricated, and the grease is just dried up in it. Not too big of a deal. Go ahead and make sure the mounting surfaces are clean. As well as the bolts. And since I'm using, since these bolts are steel going into aluminum, dissimilar materials, I'm going to be right back and get some anti-seize lubricant. We'll just put a little bit of that on there. It's not going to take much when the time comes. If you ever want to get these things back off of here again. A little bit goes a long way. Alright, now we're ready for our first new part. First thing you want to do is just make sure that they match up, diameter as well as the width. And looks like we're going to be okay. So we'll take our bolt, start this thing on here. And I'm kind of lazy, I don't want to get my socket wrench, so I'll use the breaker bar to tighten it. But when you do that, you want to be careful not to tighten it too much. It's very easy to do with a breaker bar, and you are going into aluminum, so you want to be very careful and kind of choke down on it so you don't apply too much torque. Alright, that pulley is on there. Feels good. We'll switch over to the 10mm now. And we'll take out that belt tensioner. There's actually a very good reason why why I held on to the Crown Vic and why I'm doing all this work on it now, besides doing it, making sure I do it before the wintertime hits. One of the things that our church does is oil changes for the community, just to kind of help out and as a community outreach effort. And I did the oil change on one of the church members' vehicles, and noticed that the vehicle was in really bad shape. The front tires were completely shot, left and right, and so bad that the steel cords were starting to come out. And the car had other kinds of issues, just myriad issues. Had charging system problems and everything else. And you know, went ahead and did the oil change and everything. Looks like it hadn't been changed since the dawn of time. And told the owner what the problems were. And she kind of looked down and said, yeah, she knows she needs to do it, and just hasn't had the time or the money. She's got to wait for her retirement check to come in. And just really didn't have the wherewithal. And she was in the church packing meals for the first responders, the police, fire, and rescue, despite all the problems that she was having with her own car and the danger she was risking driving a vehicle like that if she ever had to make a panic stop in the rain, or if she hit a sharp rock or anything like that. And I said, well, you're probably going to need more than just a wheel alignment. When it gets that bad, you're probably going to be looking at tie rod replacement. It's a front-wheel drive car, so probably some struts. You might have to put some money into this thing to avoid chewing up brand new tires. And she just kind of looked down and said, yeah, I know. And okay, so here's the belt tensioner. And there's the bolt we got to get off. See if it's also a 13mm. No, it's not. Let me see if I can find the right socket for it. So, after all that, I went to church the next day and saw her in there. And it just kind of hit me, you know. Give her the Crown Victoria. You've got several cars. You can do it. Why not just go ahead and give it to her? And I just kept hearing this, or just sensing, you know, do it, do it, do it. So went ahead and made the decision that day to do that, and to make sure that she has something reliable I'm going to go ahead and address all these issues on this Crown Vic now, so she won't have to, and she'll get a lot of use out of it, hopefully. I'm going to try to get this bolt off without getting too violent. There we go. I'm in a unique position at this point in time to be able to do this without incurring too much of a financial loss. The issues with this car are the belt drive system, which I'm addressing now, and I'll go ahead and put new tires on it, because it needs new tires anyway, even if I were going to sell it. So I think this is just going to be the right thing to do. I think it'll be a good use for the car. So this pulley comes off just like that, same pulley, or pulley part number. Go ahead and clean the mounting surfaces. Tires should come in probably next week sometime, and I'll go ahead and be able to get those on the car. And have a good car for her to drive. And I'm too busy running my mouth, so I can't remember how this pulley was oriented. I think it was like this. But I've got another engine I can look at. I'll be right back. Yeah, that's the right pulley. There's a little bit of a... This doesn't come all the way up to the top of the bearing surface on the new part. I'm just going to try the old part to see if that's the same way. And it is. So I'm not missing any kind of sleeve or spacer. Got a little bit concerned there. Go ahead and tighten this down. By the way, the socket size was 15 millimeters. So once I get the belt drive system done and the new tires on this thing, she's going to have a pretty good car to drive around with any luck. And who knows, I might have saved a life with the tires looking that bad. I'm going to change hands and zonk down on this thing a little bit better. So that's going to be the ultimate fate of the Crown Victoria here, is it's going to go to someone who needs it a lot more than I do. And I'll be able to keep up with it. It's going to a church member, so I'll be able to see it from time to time. I'm just tightening down this bolt. Alright, so now we have a halfway remanufactured idler or tensioner pulley. Feels a lot better. It's got the right amount of resistance in there. And we'll go ahead and apply just a little bit of anti-seize to the threads. Not too much. Okay, now we're ready to... Oh, we got one more. We're ready to go back in with this thing now. And installation is literally just the reverse of removal. Start our first bolt here. These parts are going in nice and easily. Okay, got one more. You always want to run these things in by hand, don't want to cross thread anything. Now that all the bolts are in, we can go ahead and torque them down. Same idea with the breaker bar. I'm going into aluminum, and I've got quite a bit of leverage with this thing, so you don't want to go too tight with it. This breaker bar could easily strip these threads. The other thing that the anti-seize does is it makes it easier to get a nice even torque on your fastener, because it tends to reduce galling and everything else. That's about as much torque as I want to apply on it. Okay. Now we'll go in with our green stripe belt. I may have to pause the camera or something because it always confuses me how to get these things in, but I think I want to start with the belt pinched like this and then go in between the idler and tensioner pulleys to make it out on the other side to go to the air conditioning pulley. This belt should, the green stripe belts for the heavy duty vehicles like police vehicles and trucks and things like that, they should go well over 100,000 miles before you have any problems with them. Okay, we're around the AC pulley. Now all we got to do is thread it around everything else. So we're going to go around the belt tensioner pulley and down toward the crankshaft area. Well, don't know if you can see what I'm doing, probably not, but I think getting that on is going to be a boring video. So let me go ahead and finish that. I'll show you what it looks like finished, and then we'll start her up. Plus I'm running out of battery. Okay, that didn't take too long, but I didn't know how long it would take, and I've got 10 minutes of battery left. But there's the new belt, and there's the part number. and that's how it's routed. If you guys are ever curious. And I'm gonna go ahead and give them the old belt with the original sleeve, that way they know what kind of part number to order if they ever had to replace it. And now that I've got these pulleys out of here, it's very obvious which one is bad. So here's the idler pulley, nice and smooth. And here's the tensioner pulley. You can hear the ball bearings now that there's no load on it, no tension on it, and it feels very rough. So kind of easy to sneak up on you. It runs okay in the summertime when the grease is nice and fluid, but not in the wintertime. This is just going to fail more and more. So better to get on it right now while the weather's still fairly nice, before you have a complete catastrophic failure during the wintertime. So now we'll go ahead and crank her up and see if the belt flies off of it. Everything looks good. I forgot to mention, you want to make sure that before you start the engine that the belt is properly positioned on the pulley and not sitting to one side, because when you start the engine up, it's just going to come right off really quickly and fly off, get all tangled up and damaged, and you don't want to do that on an expensive belt like that. But anyway, I think this is going to do it for the belt drive system on this car for the next 100,000 miles and probably another 20 some odd years. Engine's running really good. No noises. And now I'm going to have to turn my attention to these tires that are dry rotted, which is the entire reason why I wanted to let that family have this car in the first place. It'd be kind of hypocritical, I guess, to give them another car that also has bad tires. So I'll probably make a video of that, not for sure yet, but I'll let you know what kind of tires they are and all that kind of stuff, and then this car will be ready to go.